20th of January, President Trump signed an executive order, if you remember, stripping birthright citizenship from children of illegal immigrants. And just 2 weeks later, a federal judge in Maryland temporarily blocked that order from actually taking effect. But yesterday, the Supreme Court decided that lower courts can't impose nationwide bans on the president's executive orders, handing Trump an important victory. So what does this mean for the rest of the president's agenda? Well, joining us now is Dr. Peter Ling, Professor of American Studies at the University of Nottingham and author of After Watergate, Presidential Scandals from Nixon to Trump. Peter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Peter, this decision could be really huge for Donald Trump because we remember back in his first administration, the Muslim ban, which was one of the first things he put into action, that again was stopped by a federal judge. So this idea that the system allows for the president to sign executive orders, but federal judges up and down the country can put a stop on those orders. Does that mean the Supreme Court has just given him a free hand?
Well, not entirely.
Right.
I mean, basically, there have been complaints that in a particular area of the country, a district with a district federal court, a judge can issue a order that stops a policy across the entire country. And when Joe Biden was president, there was some complaints about this happening as well. So in practice, the Supreme Court wants to be very careful that the policy should only apply to the plaintiff and to the local jurisdiction. That's the key thing. It shouldn't apply to the entire country all at once. Now, Trump, of course, says, well, this is a green light for me to do whatever I like because these judges are all leftists and are standing in my way. They are rogue judges. But in fact, the Supreme Court isn't quite giving him quite the backing that he's alleging.
Is that still true, do you think, Peter, that the judges by the Trump administration are thought of as these sort of leftists who are trying to thwart his plans? But it's also true that President Trump has appointed the largest number of judges in his 2 terms in office.
Well, that's why he's getting majority verdicts, not unanimous verdicts.
Right.
So he's basically at most got 5 of those judges. But the ruling here was allowing for further litigation to go forward. So one of the judges was particularly keen that if you wanted a broader ban, you should make a class action suit, lumping cases together. And another one said that it didn't, in fact, amount to a ruling on the question of whether the US Constitution does give the right of birthright citizenship, which is embodied in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. So it's going to go back to the court at a later stage.
This can have huge implications, isn't it? Is it not? I think you might have touched on it there, but is it not enshrined in the US Constitution that if you were born in the US, regardless of who your parents are, that entitles you to American citizenship?
Yes, I mean, it's been the case. The 14th Amendment of 1868 was actually addressing the issue of the freed slaves,
right,
who, of course, being born in slavery, were not citizens. However, before 1868, the default position in America was that if you were born in the US, you could claim US citizenship. So it's sort of ratified for everybody. There's also a kind of clause that is open to debate, subject to the jurisdiction of the states, which was intended to make sure that a diplomat's children born in the US wouldn't automatically be sort of taken from him. But in practice, they want to use that now to say, well, actually, it was only applying narrowly to the children of the former slaves and don't want it to apply to other people who come to the United States and have children there. But there's an awful lot of very inflamed rhetoric about what this is happening. It can be quite a large number of people. There are claims that it's up to 150,000 babies a year. However, it's also the case that whereas Trump supporters say that this is being used deliberately to give the parents a right to stay, in practice, the children can't petition for their parents to get US citizenship until they're 21. So it's a very long-term policy.
Gosh. Let's look at another area that is soon going to become a bit of an emergency for Donald Trump, which is trade. We remember the so-called Liberation Day, where we saw Donald Trump wave the big boards of tariffs on islands with penguins on them. But in all seriousness, they were pretty hefty tariffs. There was a lot of concern around the globe. And then there was a 90-day pause on those trade tariffs. That deadline now is July the 9th. Have there been trade deals? We know that there was a trade agreement, and now there's all sorts of opinions of whether or not it qualifies as a deal or an agreement between the UK and the US. But has he been able to complete more trade deals?
Well, no, he's still negotiating. And trade deals are complicated things given the multiplicity of commodities involved. Now, the headlines today is the fact that he's saying, I'm not talking to Canada. And the reason he's not talking to Canada is because Canada has announced that it's imposing a 4% levy on big tech, essentially Google, Amazon, all the kind of internet-based companies that are responsible for so much of trade nowadays. So he wants to have, the Canadians want to take some money from big tech because e-commerce is so big. And because the titans of big tech gave so much money to Trump during his election campaign, have stayed close to him, he's looking after their interest in the name of America. Right.
So he is going to be protecting all those big tech people that we saw in his inauguration, of course. Peter, thank you. Good to speak. Peter Ling, Dr. Peter Ling, I should say, Professor of American Studies at the University of Nottingham and author of After Watergate, Presidential Scandals from Nixon to Trump.
So we had a very busy and successful week.
To your Truth Social post on Canada specifically, why are you deciding to end trade talks with Canada, and what rate are you looking to set?
So Canada put a charge on some of our companies, and Canada's been a very difficult country to deal with over the years. We hear Canada, we have a great relationship with the people of Canada, but it's been very difficult. And they put a charge, and they were a little bit early, we found out about it. So, and we have all the cards. We have every single one. We don't want to do anything bad, but they have, economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it, but they did something with our tech companies today trying to copy Europe. They copied Europe. It's not going to work out well for Europe either, and it's not going to work out well for Canada. They were foolish to do it. And so I said, we're going to stop all negotiations with Canada right now until they straighten out their act. Okay?
Is there anything Canada can do to change your mind about this situation?
Well, no, they put a tax on companies that were American companies that they shouldn't, a very severe tax. And I guess they could remove it. They will, but it doesn't matter to me. We have all the cards. We have all the cards. We do a lot of business with Canada, but relatively little. They do most of their businesses with us. And when you have that circumstance, you treat people better. They've had farmers that are getting like 300, 400, 200% in tariffs. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We have cases, you don't read this and the people don't report, but they charge us 400% on some dairy products. 400%. Nobody writes that. It's not fair to our farmers, and we've got to protect our farmers.
So are you just